Up the Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting. Colin here, Keith Blaniaz, Bob Sullivan, Bob Josie here. All right, we're going to start with family convenience relocation. You going to speak on it?
Yeah, him and I are going to speak for him.
Okay.
Come on up. Yeah, I'll slide. Just grab a seat. Yeah, I'll slide over. You can grab it.
Oh, we got the, what's his name?
Ray.
Ray,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Whitehead.
Whitehead?
Yep.
Good evening. My name's Ray Whitehead. I own and operate Family Convenience Center at 63 Main Street. You're probably familiar, but just in case, we're a gas station, convenience store, Dunkin' Donuts, ice cream shop, liquor store, and convenience store. Did I say that? I'm sorry. Before I talk about the future, if I can just talk for a minute about something a little over a year ago. We had a spill, and I just want to address that with you, and apologize to the board and the town that something happened on my property under my watch that was environmentally horrible thing to happen and could potentially do harm to the public water supply, and I feel terrible about that. A year prior to that, we had redone all of our plumbing and piping and everything above the tanks just to avoid a situation like that. And what happened was there was an overfill on a delivery, and a piece of equipment dislodged. It wasn't broken, but it dislodged. The people who came out to do the cleanup was LaMountain Brothers, a premier gas station builder, and their people said they've never seen anything like this. It was just a fluke, but it just showed how something horrible can happen, and there clearly wasn't enough redundant systems in place. When we had done that work, we put in an alarm system for overfills. I was instructed that's what everyone's doing, that's the new standard. There is a ball valve shutoff you can put in mechanically to stop the flow of fuel, and they said they really don't do that anymore. They've switched to this electronic. Unfortunately, what got dislodged was the sensor that sets the alarm and sounds off the alarm that it's overfilled. So the alarm didn't go off. So we spilled about 124 gallons of gas on December 31st and didn't know about it until January 25th. And it's just a horrible situation. Now, before we reopened after that, we put in the ball valve shutoffs. You know, fool me once, shame on me. But that wasn't going to happen again. So currently, we do have the alarm system, and we have a mechanical stop. So I feel more confident something like that can't happen again. But I just wanted to address, and the people in Douglas, the fire department, the highway department, Bob was there on site. I mean, everyone was just super and helping with this, and we tried to deal with it as efficiently and effectively as we could. But I don't want to skirt past what could have been a horrible situation.
I'd like to point out that that we're happy that you went above and beyond doing everything that was required. You reacted fast and took every step that was suggested, and everything turned out well. So
It did.
Probably financially for you, but
Yeah.
You know, that's completely secondary to the risk and the fear of what it could have done.
But I've dealt with a lot of issues where they try to get out of it, they try to point fingers, they try to skirt doing the things they need to do and try to do the minimal. And you know, I was appreciative that you went above and beyond to make the effort to make sure we didn't have an issue with any of the drinking water and towns.
I'm glad that's what you saw, because that's what I tried to do. So now I'd like to address the plan that we have. I could tell you 10 things that's wrong with my business, but the first and foremost is public safety. Currently, at our location, we can only hold 9 cars in the Dunkin' Donuts queue. Anybody who goes by in the morning, we back right up to the street. The 10th car is on Main Street. And 17 years ago, when we renovated and brought Dunkin' in, that was adequate. It's not adequate today. Secondly, the way our dispensers and the entrance and exits, it's just chaos coming in and out, and it's just public safety. It's not good where we are. That coupled with our growth, that we bought a full liquor license and we have those offerings now. We need more cooler space, we need more parking desperately. We need more everything. We have outgrown our current facility. We spent 6 months looking at expanding. I own the houses on either side of the store. We were going to tear one down, move out, but the Centerville Brook runs in the back. We're within 50 feet of riverfront, and when we comply with all the regulations, it renders that expansion not productive. It would solve some problems, it wouldn't solve all the problems. So,
And Ray did come before the tech review committee.
So, yeah, we reviewed
with
it. and There's
that-
still issues.
With that
Yes.
issue and with that plan, and there were a lot of issues. Curb cuts, the entrance on a curve, the queuing, it just was not smooth.
we solved the curve cut, we had the traffic study done, we moved it up to a better area. We solved the Dunkin' queue, but we didn't expand the parking lot adequately. We didn't do anything for the operation of the store, and the dispensers are still there, and there's still chaos. So we're coming up with Plan B, as I call it, a very expensive Plan B. At 74 Main Street, which is the empty lot next to the fire station on the corner of Rydell and Main Street. It's 5.345 acres that I do own. I bought it from my Dunkin' franchisee just to protect the land from hurting me. I didn't want to develop it, I didn't want to own it. And now, I'm glad I do. What we're proposing is to build a new station, significantly bigger. We are currently about 3,000 square feet. This will be a little over 9,000 square feet. We have 30 parking spaces. This has 75 parking spaces. But the biggest, the most important thing that I see is the public safety. Somewhere around here is car number 20 for the Dunkin' queuing. So just around the buildings, 20 cars. We have 9 cars out to the street, so we're somewhere up to 30 cars. That's beyond anything, any standards that are used for any Dunkin' Donuts. This completely solves that issue. It also defines entrances and exits. We have parking in front of the store, making it much easier for people to pull in. These would be 5 dispensers, and they're pushed further back. It's not going to be real tight, turning and pulling in. It is just all these traffic concerns that we have should be alleviated. But in addition to all of that public safety, from an environmental standpoint, what we're proposing is above-ground storage tanks inside of a building. And I can't speak to, I'm still learning about above-ground tanks, but everything I have learned is there's more redundancy and they're safer than in-ground tanks. In addition to that, you can inspect them. You can go in the building and look at them. And then the entire floor is a sump and can collect anything that spills. And then there's a storage tank that if something does spill, it goes into the tank. It doesn't go in anywhere. And it is far safer and state-of-the-art than what I have now.
That has to have, what, 10%?
110% of the single-use container inside it.
Yes, so
Yeah.
I'm proposing 10,000, so 40,000, so we're going to have a 4,000 gallon collection tank. Currently, the tanks in the ground where I am are 35 years old. They're fiberglass coated steel. Massachusetts does not have an age or date limitation on tanks. As long as they're tested annually and they pass, they're fine. When they don't pass, they come out.
Those are Buffite, what they call
Buffite
Buffite
tanks.
tank?
That's exactly right. When my predecessor put them in, he made them a little smaller, but he did go to a high-quality tank. Buffite, I believe, was state-of-the-art.
Buffite at that time. was
At that
safety,
time.
Yeah.
So the size of the tanks contributed, not to put any blame on anybody, but having small tanks, I like the saying, small tanks are a big problem, because when we're a lot heavier volume than we used to be, when we get a delivery, I got to fill those tanks all the way up, or I won't make it 2 days. And you got to order a day in advance, and you got to order 10,000 gallons, and it just, if you've ordered your gas, but that day happens to be light, then the gas doesn't fit, and then they have to take gas back with them. Or if it's a heavy day heavier than normal, then you run out. I run out all the time, and not all the time. I run out far more than a gas station should run out because I'm teetering right on that limit. That problem goes away. And with 2 10,000s for regular, I'll never stuff that tank. I'm never going to even approach 90% full. I don't need to. And I'll have an entire day's sales as a buffer. If a tanker's late or there's a shortage or something, I don't have any of that protection now. But the most important thing to me is public safety and environmental safety. And the engineers I've hired are all telling me about all these safety features in these above ground tanks. And we will do the state-of-the-art best protection that we can. I don't ever want to come before you again to talk about spill, nor do I want to write the checks for cleaning up a spill. I would like to just add that one of the reasons I'm here is that because of the groundwater aquifer protection in the Zone 2 area that this site is and I am, I can't have a gas station where I am, but I'm grandfathered. I can't have a gas station here. So we're applying to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a use variance that if we voluntarily shut down the one we can't have there, that they'll let us have one we can't have here. But again, we believe for traffic, for public safety, for everything, this is a better situation for the town than continuing. And it's our intent, once we're done, to remove the tanks, remove all the gas equipment, finish whatever cleanup is remaining, because it's not clean yet, but some of it's under the tanks. And we either have to go through an air sparge system, or if we take the tanks out, we remove the contaminated soil, and that's the cheapest and most effective way to finish the cleanup job there.
So that was one of my questions. So the tanks will be removed and then you'll
Tanks will be removed.
clean up.
DEP requires, after they're out of service, within 6 months, they be removed. But, forget all that. When we're up and running and, whatever time it takes to get somebody, and, we'll get right on that. So remove everything, render the site non-hazardous, and clean it to the best of our ability, and working with our environmental engineers on putting in whatever systems it takes to finish the cleanup. There was a spill in 1986, and that's what prompted the new tanks being put in back then. It took a long time. I mean, it was 2007 or something that it was finally clean, and I bought the land. I was renting the land until that point, and now we had this other spill. So now I have a copy of this. However, the copy I'm giving you is about an hour old, and it has a few modifications to it.
Did you propose diesel as well?
Yes, I'm proposing diesel as well.
Now, the one thing with diesel is we have a diesel tank at the DPW, the Highway Department. That's another tank that can be pulled from the ground.
I think that's above ground.
It
It's
is.
above ground.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
above
it is
ground.
above
It's
ground.
above ground.
But it's a 300
That's why I
gallon.
ask, because it's another concern of mine that, if we can alleviate more than one concern, then that's even better in my eyes.
And what I would love to do is offer the town a discounted rate, maybe cost plus, on buying all fuels or whatever you want to buy from me. But I hate to be next door to all your diesel equipment and have you drive off somewhere else to get it. I'll be damned if I won't give you the best price and make it the ease of filling. And, the 3 10,000-gallon tanks, I don't need 10,000 for super, I don't need 10,000 for diesel, but the cost difference in the tank isn't that much, and I'd rather have it and have the capacity so that, especially if I'm supplying the town, I don't ever want there to be an issue having fuel for you guys.
Or if there's another cyber attack, you can get through a few more days.
Well, exactly. Just the change on the one I gave you, we've added some parking here. Basically, this parking we've duplicated and put over here. We made the lanes a little wider for easier access for the trucks to get all the way around. And we added a propane tank back here for heating the building and for filling grill tanks. And I think those are really the only.
You wind up with more parking spaces, or?
Yeah, no, we're gonna, in the new drawing, it's 75. So yes, by adding like a dozen over here, but we took these 2 away,
Oh.
it's more. We, added another 10 or 12 from this design.
Well, that's good, yeah.
I mean, we're looking everywhere we can. I mean, I never want to have a parking problem again. Sunday nights with ice cream and it's crazy.
You have
I have one off-subject question, and
Yes.
then I have a couple of subject questions. So I was at the planning board meeting when I believe it was the previous owner of that land went for the Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, that was me.
That was you? And it got, quote, shot down because they didn't want to have the drive-through.
Yeah, but that was before I owned the land.
So, and they were worried about the queue, and at the time, I was, pardon my phrase, but pissed that that had even happened, because I knew that the queue was going to be longer over there. And in addition, there's only one Dunkin' Donuts I've ever seen that doesn't have a drive-through, and that's in Framingham. So that essentially killed the project just by not having the drive-through.
Well, in the end.
So I'm just curious what you're confident, and this is more curiosity than anything to do with this board, but
Okay.
if you've addressed that enough that you think that'll be all right with the planning board.
The planning board in the end did approve it and did approve
Okay.
the drive-through. So
It did, all right, because I was there the night that they said no.
yes. Well, are you sure that wasn't ZBA?
Maybe it was ZBA. Maybe it was
ZBA
ZBA.
denied it 2 or
Yeah.
3 times.
Yeah.
And the issue before ZBA was, if you go to Dunkin' Donuts website and you look at, to become a franchisee and the requirements, they strongly suggest being on the morning drive side of the road.
Yep.
That is the side we're on now.
Right.
This is not on that side.
Yep.
And the issue was turning everybody who, not everybody, but the people heading east, which is the primary route in the
Yep.
morning, would have to cross opposing traffic coming in and coming out.
Yep.
So the issues the ZBA had that I brought to their attention very clearly was, this is a traffic hazard. I was obviously trying to protect my business, and I still feel the truth is, it's the wrong side of the road for a Dunkin' drive-through.
Yeah.
It is. It belongs on the other side of the road. However, with the traffic study we're going to do and widening the road and putting in a turning lane, which is what we expect we're going to do,
Yeah.
we think it pretty much alleviates that.
Okay.
So seeing that they passed it once, I believe they'll pass it again. Also, they know how unsafe it is now because it backs up to the street. At least it will get rid of that problem.
Yeah. That was more curiosity than anything, so I apologize for going off.
No, I have no
Out of our-
problem with that.
Out of our realm.
You gonna have fire suppression?
Yes, and we made the building big. This is over 3 times the size of our current facility. And yes, anything over 7,500 feet has to have sprinklers. When the numbers come in and the estimates, if it's too rich for my wallet, then, we may have to cut some things back. We may bring the building down to 7,500 or, this is what we want to do. And this is the biggest and baddest it will be. But if the necessary, we'll scale some things back. But we'd like to do that, do this and fire suppression.
So just so again, with the 4 tanks, what's the catchment system again? I know you said you didn't have a lot of info, but.
I don't. All I know is it doesn't have to be in a building. Usually they just put a canopy on it and a fence around it, maybe some arborvitae or something hiding it. I'd like it in a building to keep people out and just keep it out of the elements. Those tanks will last forever if you do that. And then the tanks and the path where the pipes come out and where the truck parks, and all of that feeds into this system that collects it if there's a spill, which we don't have any of that now. And that's what's so much better. Anything happens, then it goes into the storage tank and an alarm goes off and everything gets shut off. So I apologize, I don't have a lot of detail on that, but they convinced me this is a whole lot safer from every aspect than in the ground.
And is there anything to make that area impervious? I'm just asking, I don't know the technology behind it or anything, so.
I'm sure there are standards on what it's supposed to be
Yeah.
that will follow. I mean, it'll have a cement floor and cement walls. Yeah, I understand it could seep through that, so I don't know if part of that is sealing that some way. I don't know.
Okay.
I know right now on under the canopy on the ground, it's just cement.
Right.
With ribs to hold it so it doesn't overflow for fire suppression, but that's not treated or anything.
Right.
I would be willing, I mean, I haven't looked at it yet, but DEP, I'm sure, has all the regulations covering above ground storage in a section.
And they do allow it in this area.
In
The
the
state
same area.
regulations were more restrictive.
Right.
Yeah, now that's an interesting thing, this Zone 2 aquifer protection, the state regulations they allow gas stations, they do not allow underground storage tanks. They do allow, it's above ground. We don't even have to apply, it's allowed. And if they're under 10,000 gallon or under, you don't even have to file for inspections, you just do your normal thing. If you want them bigger than 10,000 each, you've got to contact the state fire marshal and review.
I think that's some of the issues, I think, with this point could be the child. I think there's two avenues. One, we got to have the variance route. Hopefully, and the use variances, sometimes it can be tricky, and if it gets appealed, they're very seldom upheld. Usually if they go to court, and somebody appeals it, it gets squashed or not a use variance, unless a town specifically allows use variances, which I don't think.
That's our concern.
Yeah, and then, so the second thing is, I think that this board probably should, I think when a lot of these bylaws were drafted, it probably wasn't the above ground storage contained, so they assumed everything was going to be in the ground, so they prohibited in the aquifer for that particular reason. So I think maybe this board ought to look at revisiting the architect bylaw on a couple of issues, bring it up to standards with the DEP regulations. And they have done, I think it's kind of redundant for a community to
Be more restrictive.
right, be more restrictive when they've done the research, they've done the science and facts, they've done everything they've held.
Technology's moved forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the town bylaw specifically says no underground tanks and no above ground. It doesn't just like automatically assume underground.
Okay.
But I'm in complete agreement with you, and we've talked about that. If we can get a bylaw change to allow it, that'd be wonderful.
And I can read it to you if
Yeah,
you want.
why don't we take a peek at it? I did.
It's on page 72, prohibited uses, number 10. Underground or above-ground storage, gasoline or other liquid petroleum products.
And that's in the Zone 2.
That's in a zone 2.
And it also goes on to say gasoline sales are prohibited also.
Right, and that's on page 71. Motor vehicle, gasoline sales, car washes, all that is prohibited as our regulations state.
So maybe we should, as a board, take that up and try to move something forward.
Yeah, and if you
Address
want,
some of these-
I'll bring it to the EDC as an economic development item, and then they push it to the planning board. The planning board pushes it to the selectmen to get another warrant, because anytime you change this, requires a two-thirds vote
Right. That's how-
at a town meeting.
Maybe if we're at it, look at it, maybe we should revisit the architecture, look at if there's anything else that's redundant with the state regulations. And
Right.
stay in harmony with the state regulations.
Exactly. You know, we do have backup. It's not just a
Oh, yeah.
pulling it out of the air change.
Right.
We do have backup.
It's a lot easier to support if there is any questions on something. I mean, just, well, why don't you have it? Why do we not? I mean, the DEP allows them.
Right.
What's our answer to that versus the DEP says, yeah, you allow them. Here's the regulations, here's what you have to follow.
You know, like Keith said, times have changed.
Yeah.
The safety is there now.
Yeah, I agree.
And of course, it is a concern. I mean, that's why we made the purchase that we did of the property that was the former mobile pipeline pump station, because all that abutted the landfill.
Right.
Our zone, our primary supply is sitting at
Downstream of the
yeah,
landfill.
sitting downhill from that.
So we did make a substantial investment in some property to, we should try to protect our wells.
But if you think about it, this plan is replacing a bad plan.
Yeah.
And if we've got 35-year tanks in the ground, we don't want to find out the lifespan is 35 years in one day, because then it's too late.
My biggest question that I don't see on this plan, and again, sorry to deviate, but where's the ice cream lady gonna go?
She's coming. She's coming.
She will be there.
If you see this patio area, that's all the seating for ice cream, and she will be in the same position she's in currently. We haven't spent any money on designing or looking at a building. It is a plain rectangle for now. It will not be. It will be something a lot more visually appealing than a box. But yes, she's coming. She will have indoor seating.
Oh, geez.
And both freezers will have display glass, so you, like any normal ice cream shop, you can come in and see the flavors. So every aspect of the business will be improved. Dunkin' will be bigger, and have seating. We'll have seating, not a lot, but enough. So
Won't be a selection.
we have 6 beer doors, we'll probably have 20. And finally gets some craft beers in there that people are screaming for.
So the issue before this board tonight then is this has to go to the planning board and those zoning.
Your zoning would be the next move to get the variance.
Right.
And then
site
when we
plan.
get the variance, then we go site plan review, planning board. And every step just builds.
So I think, so then what you're looking for tonight is a consensus that we would be supporting.
Basically a support. And that would go a long way to the zoning board, because you know the zoning board's first question, well, what do the water sewer commissioners think? And we would have that answer.
I'm agreeable. I think it's a good idea.
It's a better plan than the old one.
I think you improve a lot of things, even if it's still non-conforming, it's still far better than what's existing.
That's how I view it. I get that it's not supposed to be, but it's a giant improvement, safety in every aspect. And it provides another building for another retail opportunity in town.
And I would say it's non-conforming to our wording in our bylaw, but it's not non-conforming to state regulations or
Correct.
EPA's requirements, so.
And if you guys want to change this, we can change this. Just let me know which way you want to go.
I think we should dive into it a little bit and see.
I mean, that's long range.
Yeah.
That'll be at the November meeting, and we have time, but the process really needs to start soon, within the next month or so.
Well, it does, because the last time I did an aquifer protection update to our bylaws, it took, 18 months, and I don't know how many meetings. It was not an easy process for us, but we had a lot of things that we had to correct in that plan. There was a lot of discussion, so.
You're basically-
We had a big obstacle in front of us that wasn't helping the situation.
Right.
Being prohibited on a lot of things as well.
You're basically aligning this with the state on a couple of 3 items.
Is there any reason not to do both, getting the zoning board approval and change the bylaws?
No, I think that the fastest route is through the variance process, I would say, because you're looking, I'm assuming you can move on this right away.
Well, if they say yes, and I'm confident that we can get past this hurdle, then I'll start spending money designing the building and continue on. I really want to know I can do it before I go past the site.
Right, so you have to go over the appeal period with the,
Yeah, and if they say yes, understanding the risks with that, that's why I'd still like to do
The change.
the
is a
change,
backup.
but I can, we're not going to be in the ground by digging by the time this town meeting, but we can be getting a lot closer. So if you think that makes sense, I think, and if you folks agree that this is making the situation better and safer, I'd really appreciate your support with the ZBA and the town and everyone.
Everybody I talked to is for it.
I mean, because the downside is if this doesn't get changed, and for some reason the ZBA says no, or it gets appealed,
Then I'm going to keep operating just like I'm operating.
and that's, you have all the risks associated with everything, and not helping, the helping situation by improving.
Well, and it could be worse. Could be more than 124 cal.
Right. The next one, you never know. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, now, keeping
Tank
in
lets
mind.
go or something.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people who've worked on these disasters all their lives, and they're saying it is rare that a tank leaks.
Oh.
It is,
You do the annual inspections.
it's,
and
it's usually the piping or an elbow or something, in that process. And all of that's brand new and great. And the fact that they're steel tanks, strength of steel but coated with fiberglass, I don't have a huge fear anytime soon those tanks are going to go, but they're still too damn close to the water. It's still all underground. It's just better.
I agree.
These, and again, so you said you want to put the 4 tanks in a building,
Yes.
and then, so around the tanks, would that be like a concrete foundation, like a knee wall?
I assume the concrete wall will come up plenty high.
And then the building-
And then
It'll
build
be
on top of that.
like Social's tanks over there above ground.
Yeah.
Be a concrete pit.
Yeah.
They usually make the concrete pit a containment area, so.
Yeah, it's 100.
It'll hold
10%.
110% of what, so your 10,000 gallon tank, so it'd be 11,000 gallon volume in the concrete vault area.
Yeah.
You said.
Basically a shallow swimming pool.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we have. At the bus company, we had a 10,000 gallon tank. It's above ground. And we've got a foundation that actually comes, so it sits in this concrete foundation.
Right.
And then we put a shed roof over it.
I mean, essentially,
Yeah.
It'll be the same thing.
Yeah, and that's
Except he's gonna put it in
25,
that
26 years old, and we haven't done anything to it. We rebuilt the deck because the deck rotted going up to it. So so it's a great system.
Yeah, they're in the ground, you can't see a leak. When they're above ground, you can actually smell it before it leaks.
Right.
Yeah.
as far as I don't think it's a swimming pool, that just collects it all, because I believe it feeds into this alarm system and storage system. So that's why I think it's all pitched for that. But we haven't designed that yet.
Okay.
And I assure you that the safety and the best way to do it, and we'll be happy to come back to you when we have that design and talk to you about it. I promise you, I'm not going to cut corners to, we're going to do it the
Well, whoever's going to design the system's not going to want to cut corners either.
Yeah, I mean, I would be recommending supporting the project based on the fact that it meets all the requirements.
Yes, of course.
Up to the DEP
Right.
requirements.
Yeah.
Or above.
Or above.
Yeah, and talk to the guy, the designer that comes up with that. Maybe even have a little 10-minute thing with them during one of our meetings,
Happy to do that.
where I'm not
Happy-
telling jokes about the ice cream lady or anything.
You be serious this?
That came up at the meeting before, too, though.
You think of what we just went through down the hall with the oil spill, right?
Well,
What
those
did that
guys were in
cost
here
us?
for weeks. Weeks they were here. Every morning I go to work and they were pulling into work for
They were
weeks.
what?
Oh, they were here
20
for a
feet below
month
the
or more.
foundation.
That ice cream lady, when I bought this place 20 years ago,
It wasn't.
I thought that was creepy as anything. That was gone. And then people was, you can't get rid of that. It's a landmark. Everyone knows that. And
Didn't you say it was originally a guy?
Roland insists that I change the sex to a female. And it was a guy. And, okay, I don't know, with those big eyes and the lashes.
Looks like an ice cream lady to me, doesn't it?
We went lady, and
Today, you can identify any way you
Yeah.
want. And take your pick.
You've been there for 20 years?
December 1st, 2001, I bought it.
Wow.
And 3 years later, we renovated it. And now, and when we renovated it, there was more space, there was more parking.
It was
I
perfect.
couldn't imagine ever needing more. I mean,
Yeah.
The town's been amazing.
Well, it's like I can't get out of Depot Street in the morning. I sit there for 5 minutes up there.
Oh, yeah, Main Street.
It's crazy.
That's right, Bob. If I ever run for selectman, that's the first thing I'm doing is putting a traffic light at the bottom of Depot Street.
Good idea.
The first one,
Yeah.
First and only.
I remember riding my bike down there when Johnson's had to get the garage before rolling water. When I was a kid, I used to ride down there. We didn't have to get air in my tire, but to get something. Then when Roland opened up the store,
Yeah.
I used to go down and get candy all the time.
Yeah.
That was like 1980, I think, right around early 80s.
He bought it in 81, I think,
81,
because
yeah.
he owned it 20 years.
Okay.
And it's funny, he was 42 when he bought it, I was 42 when I bought it.
No
He
kidding.
had it for 20 years. December 1st this year, I've owned it for 20 years. I'm not ready to retire.
Yeah.
But my manager, Sam, who you
Well,
folks...
20 years at that site is good for you.
And Roland used to sell cars, too. He had a car.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, had cars there up there, yeah.
He used to have-
Remember the trailer in the
Yeah.
back? Everyone drives a used car.
Yeah.
Keith, there's one question I'm surprised you haven't asked yet. What about the pole on Rydell Street? In the
I don't have an
middle of
issue
the
with that
street.
pole. Everybody that goes to the right of that pole has an issue with it. I go to the left of that pole like you're
There
supposed
you
to.
go.
So, and I'm a professional.
People have been here 40 years and they still don't know which side to use.
Yeah.
Well, the plan is to get that pole out of there and put one on each side.
I'll tell you, I finally decided to go to the right of
Go to the right.
No, I go to the left of it.
Not too
Bob.
long ago, we did that.
That's funny.
This town's changed a lot in the 20 years I've been here.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
for
imagine 20 years prior.
So I think the next move is hit the zoning board June
July,
7th?
ZBA is July 7th.
July 7th.
And they're working on the application now. We're going to go and ask for the use variance. If this board were so inclined to express their,
Letter of support.
if you support this, it would be great just to let them know where you stand. What size water main comes down here? Is it 4-inch, 6-inch?
Right now, it's an 8-inch.
Is it?
It's an 8-inch cast iron. I'd like to go with a 12-inch ductile iron. It's for future discussion, but right now, it's a 8-inch cast iron pipe coming up this way, and I think it's an 8-inch going up right hill as well.
So I know when we renovated and put in a new, I think we did a 1-inch pipe into the building, and the very first day, the pressure was so great, all the Duncan equipment got blown out, that we had to put in pressure reducers, so thank you for I mean, great pressure, I'm serious.
You should have-
And ironically, it trickles out of my shower at my house. I have 0 pressure.
Thank you for your
Dunkin'
pressure.
I'm gonna start showering up there. Where's the rain blocker in the new building?
So I would think you would, I'm surprised the person that could there because the tank's so close.
Is it possible because of the hill, it comes down and
So
builds pressure?
There's enough elevation
Yeah, that's what
difference
you
there,
get.
because if you think about it, where we have to reduce the pressure is that booster station. So it's not much further down, and you're at, you're 115 PSI down there, so you're probably 85 up where you are, and typically you don't want to go over 80 for plumbing.
Right, yeah.
But you got plenty of flow
Plumbing
there for
code
your
is
fire
80.
protection.
Well, that's, obviously a concern, that there's plenty, so
Yeah, you
that's
should be
good.
fine for supply anyway.
I think they said generally it's a 4-inch they bring in to the building.
4 or 6 for that size building,
For a sprinkler, right?
depending on your configuration, and your engineers will tell you what.
Right, exactly, yeah. And I know they work with you and they,
Yeah,
Would he be better off coming in off of Rydell or
no, Main Street right now.
Main Street?
But it's looped through Rydell, so
Yeah.
it's got.
What about your sewage stuff?
septic,
Septic?
here's the primary and here's the
Oh.
expansion for septic. Tanks would be up here somewhere. We'd have a grease trap. Right now, my leach field is in the 2 acres behind the store. We have a 2,000-gallon grease trap. I may be off on the sizes.
Right.
Good-sized grease trap, good-sized septic, and then a pump tank. And
It pumps up?
it pumps up under the stream, way up back, into a pretty big leach field up there. So this will be nice not to have to pump it, have it gravity,
Yeah.
and,
That used to be the junkyard.
I know, you go up there, you still find parts of cars sticking up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it used to be the junkyard. We used to come down to see at the end of the trail. That's where I was with the railway bike, I was a kid, we used to come down to the junkyard, and go over the bridge.
Well,
I don't understand how these parts just keep coming up, because I'll pull them when I see them and throw them in the dumpster, and then, yeah. it's really
it's just
weird.
like stones.
Yeah,
keep coming up.
the
I
frost
guess
moves
that's-
them up an inch a year.
Yeah, I remember when they cleaned them all out, I remember when they cleaned all that stuff out.
Yeah.
I know,
Like said, every-
down on Main Street, when
They
they,
cleaned out what you saw.
down on Main Street next to Jackman's where they put that parking lot in, I used to get drowned down in my place behind there. It was like a river. You know, to be, they pitched everything right down there, and now the ground was up that much higher. You know, within the last 15 years or something. The ground keeps coming up.
Is there any other questions or anything I could add?
Project, and I'd like to see it move forward.
Thank you.
Certainly improve a lot of conditions.
I will promise that it will be something Douglas will be proud of.
Well, you've always done what you said you were going to do and over and above.
I don't know why people don't, to be honest. I mean, it's a lot easier. Everybody in this town, every committee, every place I've gone, everyone's been so supportive and helpful. Like, what is there to fight? I mean,
Right.
I think it'll look nice there. Do you still have pumps with the kids, or you have self-serve pumps? Off the wall question.
we haven't made a final determination yet.
Have you talked with any of the neighbors?
I have not. So, I mean, it's fire station, it's town transfer station. I mean, this gentleman indicated he'd be up for selling his property if whatever went in was, needed it. I don't need it. I don't want it. If he really doesn't want to own it with this here, I'll work with him to make him happy, but there's a big berm here too. I mean, that goes way up at the
Yeah, it's way up.
end. So I don't think he will see or hear it, really. I think. I hope.
And like you said, strategically placed arborvitae's, work wonders.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for all your help.
Get a letter out.
Yeah, when we get that letter drafted for that meeting.
Yeah, then I can run it to the ZBA, because I'll be with Ray at that ZBA meeting.
What is it, July 7th?
July
July
7th.
7th.
We're not ready for the June, so.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you for your
Good
time.
night.
Do you want to discuss the book change tonight, or you want to save that for, we have time. We don't have, if you get business, we don't have to do that tonight.
I think that's going to be a lot more involved.
Yeah.
I just think that we'll probably, if we're going to go for amendments to the aquifer protection bylaw, we would want to go through it, because I think those things that we had talked about in the last one, that we just had so much we were trying to do in one. I think there's still other improvements that we can make throughout the bylaw, tighten it up and get things aligned with what they should be. So,
And besides just that one.
yeah, I mean, I would say that there's a lot more involved than just that one topic that I think we need to look at, review, and understand.
All right.
I would have to get, you'd have to get a zoning book. Do you have that, do you have a copy of that? Do you have the zoning?
Yeah, I might have one at home, yeah.
So, say with Bob, just have to get a copy of all the aquifer protection bylaws.
Oh, yeah.
You go through them, everybody has a copy.
Yeah, they've got it right online. If you want, I can get you prints. You need just the prohibited section?
I can have Christine get you guys all.
Yeah.
The zoning bylaws.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if anything's changed since, because when we went through the last time thing, I think I had a copy of it back then.
What's the date on yours?
This is 2012?
This is the most recent. Well, this is when they did the I was on the board with that, 2004 was when that was done.
Because I got 5619.
2004?
Trying to see when,
Should be right on the front page, right here.
oh, yeah, 5, 6, 19.
5619, okay, so that is the latest.
So I think we upgraded the aquifer one in 2012.
It was 12, yeah, 5, so it's 12.
So your section 8.1, Water Resource Protection Overlay District.
Yeah, and I know there's like parts of the map that irritate me because when they did the map, CIA or whoever did it didn't align
Yes.
our alignment correctly. So, you know, our zone 2 followed along, but if you actually look at the map,
Skewed.
yeah, when they overlaid it, they offset a little bit, so you see it doesn't line up, which can cause a lot of confusion if you're on that line.
Yeah.
50 feet over.
It's a difference between you're in it or you're out of it. It could cause unnecessary harassment on certain parcels.
The intent when we, the last round we did that, that was supposed to get corrected for some reason.
Right, we clarified it in the wording,
Yeah, in the wording we clarified.
but it's still, when you have two contradicting things, it's a area of issue that doesn't need to be there. So I'm sure, you know, if we're going to go through it, I want to go through line by line and address everything, make sure it's all in alignment with what we want, and fix all the little mistakes and typos
Yeah,
and
and you
whatever
could
else.
go
might
right
be.
to the selectmen with that, right? Whatever changes you make to get it on the warrant.
Well, we go.
No, we got to go through the planning board,
Planning board,
Go through planning board, and because they're actually
the governing body.
the governing body of the.
Okay.
Then they would make.
and a recommendation to the selectmen. November meeting, 2 months would be September, first week in September. They've got to have that
Well,
in hand
They would request
for
it.
consideration. I mean, you can always get a placeholder on the warrant and do it up the month before.
Yeah, so it would be the planning board would be the board behind them would have to ask the selectmen for the placeholder.
Right.
right.
Yeah, and I agree. Ray, we should go both ways. Short-term zoning variance, long-term, let's get it done. All right. Do you guys want an update on the Massworks grant we're working on?
Sure.
Bob and I have been busy, and I think that's an understatement. We probably contact each other sometimes 5, 6 times a day.
So you're the only one I talk to every day on vacation.
I think yesterday I
Father, I'm
talked,
on vacation.
only text, I didn't go with them. Sometimes I talk to Bob more than my wife.
You must love that.
Yeah, she does, actually. As you know, we've been trying to upgrade Gilboa North Street for quite some time. Because of the driving force behind the 1.1 million square foot warehouse going on the McIntyre gravel pit, this is now the catalyst to drive these projects forward. What Bob and I have proposed on, or start off at North Street, was to go from, correct me if I'm wrong, but 8-inch to 16 for the entire length. It'll connect to the 12 that's already on the bridge, cross the bridge, and then go up Gilboa Street, 2,800 feet, goes from 6-inch to a new 12 to connect to the 12 at DeCaro Mill, the envelope company, to the Shell station, which is 12, that's existing, and then take that 12 and extend it under 146 to the Blackstone Logistics Center, which is the second warehouse, 646,000 square foot warehouse on the other side of 146. To create the loop, we have to upgrade Northeast Main Street, and that will go from existing 8 to 12-inch to the Uxbridge line, and that's 2,600 feet. So that distance is 67 in Douglas, 6,700 in Douglas, 2,600 in Uxbridge, for a total of 9,300 feet. The sewer We'll start off with the new sewer station. You have the old sewer pump station at the dam right in front of the envelope company. Bob's been working on that design to get a new system. It's, what are we going with, 100,000 gallon a day capacity, pump capacity?
Now, I haven't heard back from Gene and them.
I think
thought-
that's what
I thought
they're-
we looked around 150, but
150?
just for potential.
Minimum
future growth.
100.
Yeah, it's at least 100, but might shoot for a capacity around 150,000.
Yeah, we have no idea what could go into that gravel pit later.
Could be anything, but I hate to have to redo another force main or put an additional pump station in when you want to look at the full.
Potentially, right now, there's 1.75 million square feet of warehouse going in. That's pretty much a given. There could be another up to 4 million square foot warehouse in that area. You're looking at pine, sand, and gravel, 2 to 3 years down the road. You're looking at the solar farm on Bosma's, that's a potential area. The golf course in Uxbridge would all feed into the sewer pump station. So that's why we're looking at future capacities and making this thing pretty big to absorb anything that comes out of that area. And I think that will pretty much develop that area. 150,000 is probably it. So the new sewer pump
How's that going
station,
to affect our sewer plant? How's that going to affect our sewer plant?
Our average right now is about 200,000, so then get us to 350, and the capacity is 600.
Oh, okay.
I think all around, it's a win. You get more revenue for the water sewer to relieve some of the rate concerns and strain on customers currently,
and you'd be getting a mix of residential and commercial ratepayers.
right. So, we would extend our capacity there for the wastewater. I don't see that there's a whole tremendous amount of additional wastewater that we can add, other than Davis Street. So, it'd be the only other potential, so I think this is probably the best resource to bring in, right, to help alleviate some of the ratepayers' pain and also bring in a ton of tax revenue for the town, so it's a win-win on both sides.
How about that parcel on the other street? Specific, or you discuss that?
I think that was factored in the 4 million.
Yeah, that was factored in, that you're talking about Vecchione's property. Yeah, Vecchione, Pine, Sand, and Gravel, DeFreeze, and Sutton. You could, we're looking at a 3 million square foot warehouse in that area. 3 1s or 1 3, 200 and a 100, any combination. The demand for these things
That
is
land area would cover 300 million, I mean, 3 million?
3 million square foot warehouse. That's an 85 acre warehouse, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, it's really a great spot. I mean, you're at that 146
Yeah,
corridor.
right there.
Shoot to Providence or shoot up to the Pike.
Yep.
No traffic
Really
coming through
sweet
Douglas.
spot.
I would love to see a direct access road off of 146
Into
southbound,
it.
even put in a third lane if we have to. Again, I'm working on that ball right now. If it takes 4 years, now's the time to start. Keep these trucks off our streets.
So they say who they disclosed the.
Nobody knows until they build. And when it's halfway done, people stop bidding on it. That's how it works.
So the company that is proposing to build it came in and met with a bunch of town officials, and they don't have any particular one in sight, but they hear enough chatter that there's a need for one, and they go based on that and looking at the geography and everything else and say, yep, we'll build it and they'll come.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't give us any.
And they said it would be a
Enough
top 50 Fortune, the Fortune 500, the top 50. It's one of them.
I think he said top Fortune 100 is, I think what he said.
Pretty good companies, though, if you're sitting on that list. Reputable.
But
I can assume it's not Amazon, because they don't deal with Amazon.
yeah, from what I heard, that company hasn't done any Amazon buildings. They've done multiple of these buildings.
But typically been, I know you've done your research, but typically been clients on.
What's that?
Has anybody done any research on the developer, typically whose clients have been in past projects you've worked on?
Don't have the booklet with me, but they gave us a booklet of all the projects. The name of the company is CRG, Charlie Romeo Golf, CRG. They're out of St. Louis, Missouri. Just look at their website, and it's a pretty impressive website.
I got the pamphlet down the office.
I guess I was just thinking on the water side, but how much water?
Well, they estimated,
20, for waste, 22,500 per day.
yeah, which was essentially their water. as well.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you were saying, that's right.
yeah. And they'll be running the 12-inch from Northeast Main Street up through their property, looped around the building, connecting to Gilboa.
And the need for all the upgrades was strictly fire protection, not domestic use, so.
So once we get done with the pump station, we've got to replace the 4-inch force main with a 6-inch force main, and that dumps into the manhole at 60 Gilboa. So that's from the pump station to the treatment plant, from the pump station to Blackstone Valley. That'll just be a simple 4-inch force line. That takes care of both sides of the street. Right now, the latest estimate from Stantec is $6,400,000, just round numbers, 6.4 million for that, for all that. We're applying for the Massworks grant, hopefully with 50% grant, we can get 3.2 million from the state for that. And the two developers, the two warehouse developers are pitching in the match, so it's not costing us anything.
So we should probably talk to the Carl Bill too and find out. 'Cause if we run this by, he'll have plenty of flow to go fire protection for his mill instead of relying on the mud puddle across the street.
The turtle lined main he's got, fish line.
Now, has there been any discussion on anything looping down like on Mill Street, coming down across country?
That'll be phase two.
That
That'll be
would be
phase
for the
two.
development point of that
The
project.
three-year plan that you talked about?
Yeah,
Yeah. Once they get to that point, it would be looking at a new pipe up North Street, storage tank up there, and looping down through.
looping down, connecting this, so the Gilboa Street will become the southern leg of that loop. Now, what I am doing is putting in a Massworks grant for engineering design for Davis Street. The same one we had pulled off the warrant 2 years ago. We're reapplying for that, well, we're doing the Massworks grant, so we get a 50% reimbursement on that. But that line will go from the high school all the way to the Uxbridge line, and then it'll include Monroe to create that loop and come up by where Granutech is. So that'll be the loop and then an extension. If you want a well up there, we can discuss that at a later date.
You're already partway down Monroe anyway, right?
Yes.
Coming off a hot for that.
Right, but that's an 8-inch, right? I think for the loop, Stantec said they need
Yeah,
the
that's
12.
Yeah.
You'd have to go
And it's
12 of
8 now.
Davis.
It's 8 now, yeah. 8-inch cast.
And then the sewer, I think Gina was going as far as she could go for gravity.
Which would get you, ballpark it's tough because you're just trying to eyeball it, but I don't know if you ever drive up that road.
You can see this,
And you-
this keeps going in here.
Well, you try to figure out where the peak is, but then when you go on the other side and start driving back, you're like, oh, wait a minute, no, it's that way.
Yeah,
It's very deceiving when you try to drive that. You get out there with a golf ball or something, see which way it rolls.
so she's going to try to go as far as she can without a 100-foot trench at the peak.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause you can kind of go a little deep through that. You want to
Through
keep it
the-
under 20 feet deep, but
Yeah.
you'll be able to go a little deep over the peak and get yourself a little beyond that. My guesstimate was right around where the gas line is,
That's what I was gonna say, probably right around there.
Yeah.
where it crosses over.
And then it's a small pump station after that. if you
Yeah,
had
so
to.
if they wanted anything further down, it'd be a pump
Yeah.
station with a force main after that.
For and again, I'm going backwards, just bear with me, but the Blackstone Valley Center, Would there have to be a pump station there to get?
Yes,
up top?
yes, that would be a 4-inch forced main from Blackstone Valley under 146 because it goes uphill to Dunkin' Donuts
And would
and then
that be
down.
theirs?
Yes, they would own that.
They would own that?
Yeah, they would own that. They know that. Right now, they have a leach field
So
design,
they got a design for a septic,
Yeah.
but I think.
but they're getting a lot of static on a small employee lot
Yeah.
because this leach field is taking up so much room. So I think they would
I
come
don't know if
to
they
us.
understand it, the leach field can go under a parking lot. So,
It could.
Yeah, they have pavement now that has, the water goes through it, so. Yeah.
But like Pilot out in Sturbridge, if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah.
It's right off 84 there.
Yep.
Their whole parking lot is their leach field.
Their
Oh, yeah.
leach field.
They got a wastewater treatment plant, it's an RBC plant right out the back.
So that's it on water sewer from my end. It'll take one of the items off of your wish list.
Yeah, fuel. Save a lot of money too. So what do you think the odds are getting the Massworks? How do you think that's?
Luck of the draw depends how many applicants.
So what's the backup?
The backup is, well, the warehouse people, CRG, said they are willing to pay for all the Douglas upgrades, regardless of if Massworks come in.
Yeah, they said if Massworks is gonna slow them down any, they're just gonna pay for it.
Yeah. Come March 1st.
Right.
No, they need,
Large number, but it's a small number for that.
well, it's a $100 million building, and like Frank said, $3 million for upgrades, that's nothing.
3% cost.
Yeah.
The realtor gets more than that, there's commission.
So there's no downside to this, just all upside.
Sounds good.
Now get Douglas on the map.
We're not now?
Well, we are, but no one's looking.
Well, Pimple.
They see us, but they're not looking at us. But this will kind of start the flashing sign, we're open for business.
You'll be able to see it on Google.
Yeah.
That's it, when one thing goes in, it keeps building.
Right,
building
it
up.
builds momentum.
It's like Home Depot and then in Oxford, there was nothing there, and then all of a sudden, then Market Basket came in, and then before you know it.
Yeah, then you got the
exploded.
strip mall in the back, and the
Yeah.
gas station, just,
They feed.
yeah, feed off each other,
yeah.
right.
Get the acre.
Now, the nice thing about all these upgrades is driving the natural gas down Lackey Dam Road into Douglas. As you know, we do not have natural gas.
No.
So this is the Eversource picture, and that's it's either a 10 or 12-inch line coming down. It'll end at North Street right now, because we'll have all these streets open, so now's the time to put in the gas line.
Tennessee Gas Corporation, John.
20-inch line, 700 PSI, and we don't have gas. What is wrong with this picture?
Imagine that. That was, I mean, you were tracing that down for on that too, weren't you?
Oh, yeah, I was trying to get a 1 million square foot cannabis to tap that and then supply Douglas.
It was all about the use.
Yep.
They wouldn't do anything, kind of a certain amount of use of that.
Well, they needed a cogen plant to drive the cost, and the warehouse would have a cogen plant. Because a cogen plant would take all their waste heat and heat the buildings. 1 million square feet of cannabis cultivation would be the waste heat for the cogen. The byproduct of this cogen is electricity, which they would have too much, so they'd ship it out. Yeah, they build the cogen on waste heat. And all the cogen plant is like your diesel engines on your, on the tracks, the train tracks. It's one of those engines, but it runs on natural gas. And it produces so much heat, but they take that heat and they run the chillers in the summer, and they use the heat.
Well, that's the next test. What phase is that one? That project on
What's that?
Davis Street, phase 2 project, that phase?
That's probably going to be coming in sooner than North Street. I've already got people looking at the 40 acres behind Monroe right now, and they're already screaming for water sewer. So at least I think Bob and I will be happy to get on the front end of some engineering as opposed to playing catch-up like we are right now.
Yeah, this was a tough one to pull off.
Yeah, I thanked Gina yesterday on behalf of both of us for, she's pulling off a 6-month engineering project in 3 months, and it's been hectic. We've had a weekly job meetings, we'll have our last one this Friday. A lot of coordination. She's been good.
Yeah, she was
She has been excellent.
good. Dennis was good too. Dennis was good. Is Dennis still consulting or is he
I
retired?
haven't heard anything from Dennis.
He's retired now, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was still consulting, though. I think he was retired, but I think he was still kind of,
Oh,
I haven't
consultant for
heard
the
anything
company,
from him.
yeah.
I think with all the COVID and everything, with
yeah.
people being out of the office and everything else, that they just kind of didn't have as much going on as they did before they need to call in. Although they have called John Amato for some of these projects when we were looking them over, so.
Any questions?
No. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming
Yeah,
in.
thank you for helping us out.
Thank you.
You know, good work.
Yeah.
It's been actually enjoyable,
For the most part.
working with you
I got
guys.
some of your stress calls.
Nice to get paid. Nice to get paid full-time, huh?
Yeah, I got my part-time job with overtime.
We'll get your statue next to the ice cream lady.
Yeah.
I don't want any statues. It's a place for the pigeons to go.
Get one next to the ice cream lady.
Yeah, yeah, then you guys are gonna say, is that a male or a female? Well, gentlemen, I thank you very much.
All right, thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of your meeting. Get to your exciting stuff now.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Okay, go on to the rate discussion.
Yeah, I don't know how you want to attack that.
Is this what you came up with
Well, that's what we came up with after the last discussion.
after the last?
I think after I got all the sewer users in, it dropped from that 77 to 70. So the additional revenue would be 70,143.73.
Where are you looking at, Bob? This is my first round at this one, so.
Yeah, so on the top section,
Yeah,
if you go over to where it says sewer,
okay,
then follow that straight down,
yeah, 77.
77,083.33. That's now 70,143.73. But now these numbers are based on 2020 data, and 2020 usage, which may be slightly higher than normal because everyone being home from COVID. So people were home using water a lot more. So I can't say that this would definitely generate these numbers. It may be lower when people are back to work full-time.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping additional revenue sources come in, as we just discussed.
Yeah. Plus there's been additional with the mill and a lot of the.
The mill numbers were factored into this.
Okay.
Maybe not a full year, but maybe that'll offset.
You mean on a saw, the mill?
No, I mean for the, well, water and sewer. I mean, they're water and sewer customers. Let's see, I can.
So an overview, so the current zeros with 3,000, the rate would be 363 per 100 cubic feet.
Yep,
So this is,
which that's a 10% increase.
so the consensus was, because I haven't been at a few meetings, so the
Right, yeah.
consensus was that the board wanted to move into that direction, I'm assuming.
To go to the tiered, yeah, so we talked about the tiered, and I had originally thought, like in looking at the comparison that Bob had given us with Dudley, I think had 3 tiers.
Yeah.
And I was originally banging my head around 2 tiers, and then Bob put together a proposal of 4 tiers. And we kind of worked through all of it and banged the numbers around. So for the lower users, Bob refers to the little old lady that uses just a little bit of water. We tried to keep that as reasonable, so we left the meter charge the same for those meters, and then for those users less than 3,000 square feet, cubic feet. I was thinking like you in square footage. Cubic feet. That's a 10% increase to 363. Versus when you looked at what Doug put together, that was a 45% increase,
Yeah.
So,
So the zeros for 3,000 would be that 363 per 100 cubic feet.
Yeah.
So on an average, a 3,000 cubic foot bill will increase by $108.90.
No, not increase, that's the total.
That'll be the total, yeah.
What an increase would be, so
With the,
if you tell me what number, I can kind of give you
just use 3,000.
so 3,000.
Just use the high of each one.
Scroll over there. So 3,000 results in $9.90 additional
For 6
for 6 months for water,
For $9 for,
and 22.50. Well, that's a different rate structure over there. But for the water, it's $9.90 more.
that's per 6
For
months.
3,000 cubic feet usage
in 6 months.
in 6 months. Although if you use 3,000 in a year, it's $9.90 for the year.
Okay. Do we all kind of agree on the 4th tier?
What was the, on the wastewater, what would that come out to?
Well, based on those numbers, the 821, the 3,000 increases you by 2250. So the old rate would have been 223.80, and the new would be 246.30.
The current sewer rate was 633.
Now 746.
746 to 821. Under 3,000 or less.
What's that?
So $8.21
That was a 10% that I based it on as well.
from the 746 to 821.
Yeah.
2250, so on average,
And just so you want,
3,000 square feet, I mean, that's, so you gotta be saying square feet. Cubic feet would be, you'd be looking at about $30 increase
Per year?
for 6 months.
For 6
On
months.
water and sewer.
for water and sewer.
And so you understand, because some people get confused on how the tier works. So if you use 5,000, your first 3,000 is at the 3,000 rate, the 363. Then the second 2,000 cubic feet would be at the $4 rate. So it's an increase of 37 cents additional on each of those 100 cubic feet beyond the 3,000.
Right, so you're not, there's no, you're starting at.
Yeah, yeah, you're not saying, all right, I went over 3,000, now all of it's $4 per 100 cubic feet. It's only what you go over the 3,000.
It's really up, there's probably a small amount greater than 10.
Yeah, there's, let me see.
I think I had that, what was it, 6?
So I had it written out, but
Yeah, we had it.
I didn't-
Last meeting, we talked about it.
I didn't bring all my papers with me. That is...
I just saw mine, we're at 5,700. We go home and shut off one of the sinks.
You're at 5,700?
Yeah,
You got a
I
paper.
just saw it.
Yeah, I've got everybody in here.
What's mine?
It doesn't go by, it went by how much you used, it's not in any other order.
Oh,
It's 40 customers that are over 10,000.
so the additional revenue, if I change it to into this field structure, would be 115,900. Actually, no, we should reduce the 77 to 70.
Yeah, so on the water side, that was
Water side.
an increase of 126,902.26
On total, or just water?
for just water.
One, say it again?
126, it's on that paper, 126,902.26.
26. Oh, yes. And then on wastewater,
70, 143.73.
where is that on
It's,
Well, it was 77,083.33, but I finally got all the customers. And it might be
Oh, I'm
off,
looking- I was-
it might be off by just a little bit.
the, I was looking at the bottom, I was thinking it was separated
Yeah.
out from the bottom.
Yeah, it might be off just a little bit because I didn't factor in the
That was
the sewer
septic.
only. 'Cause it didn't fit in this program the way I wrote it, so.
So 126, 70, and then on the meter revenue,
So meter revenue, that was, and to explain how I based that. So up to 3/4 inch meter was $50 was the base fee, which is the current base fee. So that's 829 of the customers right now. So without touching that fee, if you look below, there's a chart that I did that gives you the surface area difference between a 3/4 inch pipe and a 1 inch pipe, which essentially gives you the calculation for how much additional water you can pull through that pipe. So I used that number, which the increase from a 3/4 to a 1 inch is 1.776% more water that you can pull through a 1 inch than you can a 3/4. So that's the number that I use to increase the base fee by. And the same calculation right through. So if you base it on how much water you have available for your base fee, that's how I calculated what the fee structure should be for the different size meters. Because, you know, if you tell someone, you know, hey, you can have a Chevy Citation for $10,000, or you can get a 70 Hemi Cuda Plum Crazy Purple original whatever for $10,000. Which one are you going to take? That car is worth $1 million. This car is worth $1,000. You're going to take the Hemi Cuda because, you know, but that's the problem. I mean, a 1 inch meter costs us a lot more money. All the fittings for a 1 inch cost more money. When we have to replace it, it's more money. It's just,
So you're talking about eliminating the 1 inch?
no, I'm
I
talking
mean-
about charging more for
Oh,
base
charging
fee.
more for it, oh, yes, okay,
1.77% increase.
right.
So if you, and I mean, I think there's more that we need to do, as in connection fees and everything else as well, but I didn't get that far in this because I put this together in a week or something, so.
and we did, and again, we did utilize Doug's information a little bit there. So Doug had said that 5/8 and 5/8 by 3/4 inch meters, which we agreed there was an issue with that. 527 customers we had on those meters left at $50, and then 3/4, we had 302 customers that was, he said we should bump up to 75. And then in discussing at the last meeting, we just decided everything up to 3/4 should just stay at the $50.
I mean, I can change that if you want to do a 5/8 and a 3/4 to change that as well, because
But we figured that encompasses the majority of the users, so there would be a change with their meter fees. So try to keep that reasonable.
Yeah. So now, is this, with the budget that was approved, is this,
I didn't go through all the budget that was approved stuff, and, when we went through the budget, I had said that, I kind of based it off of your format last year, where we took the previous year and used that as a base and eliminated things and looked at what we needed to do.
yeah,
I can't say that I agree with it, but that was the methodology that I went with, because I still think there's a lot of things that, repairs and maintenance that happen that are unforeseen, and there's a lot of things that, I've said in the past that we needed to budget for and get, but we put it off and we kick it down the road. But one in particular, because Aqua Aerobics had called a couple weeks ago and said, look, all your electronics are non-existent anymore. You can't get parts. You need to upgrade all your electronics. So they gave me a price for that, and I'll say off the top of my head, I'm not going to give you an accurate number, but I want to say it was $68,000 for one bank, and we have two for the main controls for the wastewater. And then it was $35,000 for each of the filters, just for the electronics, that we need to upgrade because you won't be able to get parts. So if we have a lightning event or something that wipes out the electronics, we're kind of screwed. You can't get the parts anymore. And that was one of the things that in previous years I had said, look, these are going to be obsolete. We need to try to get spare parts. And I think I had presented at one of the commissioners' meeting, it was $18,000 to kind of get a spare for each component, because there's multiple different components. There's a CPU, there's a analog input, analog output, digital input, digital output. So there's a whole bunch of these different cards within the wastewater system. So I had a price for $18,000 to get kind of a spare of each one. And we pushed it off and said, well, let's look at that next year, and we'll try to build the inventory next year. Next year, when I went to get the price, they said, oh, no, they discontinued it, and the price that was $18,000 went up to $85,000 to get just one spare card for each of these, which, as we see with the quote they gave me to upgrade all the equipment that we need to now, it's cheaper to upgrade the equipment than it is to buy the spare parts. So
I don't recall any time that I've always been supportive of any time that you brought about something that we know was going to be repaired. But that's how many times we do the budget process. I've always been supportive of anything, equipment, things that.
well, these were spare parts, and I can probably go back and find it when we had the meeting, and I had said it, but there was probably a bunch of things on there that we were trying to do, and we looked at it, and it was, all right, push this one off for a year, and that time frame is when Alan Bradley said, nope, we're no longer doing these, it's done.
Was that like 2 years ago?
No, it was more than that.
Was it?
It was around
I
when,
know it
it was around when we upgraded the computer systems for the wastewater, because Windows
Yeah, they weren't
95
supporting
or
that.
whatever it was, they weren't supporting anymore, and we had to up Windows XP.
XP.
So when Windows XP was discontinued, we had to upgrade the computers that controlled the whole SCADA system. And so that was a $25,000 price tag, and I think that was probably one of the concerns as to buying the spare parts, because that was a big ticket item that year. So that, obviously the control system that runs the entire plant was a little more important than spare parts, so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right, so, and I understand the logic, I'm just explaining what happens, if you push it down the road, you don't know what the result's gonna be, and it resulted in a huge price difference. I mean, nobody would have anticipated going from 18 to 85 on parts that are discontinued either, so.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in laying out a budget for 3 years on all balance of capital stuff that we talked about before. And I think I've seen that starting to really.
I mean, I've always had plenty down the road in the future in my head. It's a matter of, you know, putting it all on paper and explaining it all to you guys, I guess, but,
So I think it's a lot easier to, when we start getting into budget discussions, you know, we have something like that, it's okay. How are we looking on that? Like, I know with the, I was gonna ask you, how are we on all the projects that we budgeted for the FY '21 budget?
the majority of them are moving forward. Some of them I held off on just to try to figure out which way we were going with the engineering and stuff. If we didn't get that through,
I
then,
know, I agree with that.
then that would have,
There's no perfect scenario, but.
right. So,
You try to stay the whole course as best as possible.
right, so the majority of those projects are moving forward. And, like the generator had to wait, so this year's a prime example of, you know, not being able to prepare for
Yeah,
everything and anything. I mean, our phone system crapped out. I got that Mickey Mouse wired right now, right to the street phone line, and bypassed all our phone systems.
Looks professional to me, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 generators went down. I mean, one generator was $100,000, but we went through it, and I think I've said right from the beginning, I thought that generator was way oversized, so.
Oh, the one at the plant.
Yeah, so we were able to look at that and downsize it, you know, to about half of what it is at, you know, a little less than half the cost, so.
Is that, where are we at that, with that?
Everything's approved, I just gotta get one more bid and order that.
How about the, I know, wasn't the other generator on part of the?
Primary was on the list, yeah, that one's gonna get ordered as well. So I got all the companies giving me quotes on both, so I can just get both of them ordered.
Yeah.
And then I know we've got a portable generator that was pushed off to this year. So that would be looked at after July. Gilboa was part of that portable scenario. But with this design that we're looking at, that's going to have its own standby generator. That's a better scenario.
Do you have a list of the budget that was approved? You said it was going off memory now, so correct me if I'm wrong. 270 something, I think it was the capital project.
Additional non-recurring type, I believe it was somewhere around there.
So what projects, what were, I know one of them was probably the remaining balance to the I-9, was it I-9?
Yeah, that was what went towards the engineering.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the I had to,
Oh, we used definitely used some.
yeah, the I had to pull more money in because there was some misunderstanding on the
Yeah.
phases, I suppose.
Yeah, phasing it in 2 years or 3 years. 2 years.
Well, the 150 that I had said was phase 1,
Yeah.
and I told you there'd be a phase 2 and phase 3. And you took that as the 150 would cover the 3 phases, so split it into 3. But at 150 was the first phase, and then after we complete phase 1, that would, because you have no idea what phase 2 and 3 would be until you complete phase 1. So, and I had said that at one of the meetings, that phase 2 could be anywhere from $10,000 to $10 million. You don't know until they go. And I'd said that I don't anticipate that because I've looked at most of the sewer system and I think we're in decent shape. I think our biggest problem is sump pumps, but.
Is that the truck I see you driving, the flow truck?
Yes.
Yeah. I see them all.
Yeah, I know it.
Bob, on the sheet, just to make sure my math is correct, so that the underwater, the 126,902, and then under sewer, the 70,143. Are those annual, or is that 6 months?
That's annual.
That's annual, okay. And then the 153,949 for meters is annual also, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I had that one broken out with semi-annual.
Yep.
You can see the difference there.
So was this the numbers, I guess I go back to the budget that was approved. Like, how do you arrive at these to get the calculation to get for this revenue?
How did I come up with these?
Yeah, I mean, is there, with the budget that was approved,
Oh, yeah,
we need to have, you know, obviously they need to have, to raise the rates too, to support the budget.
I think when I looked at it, oh yeah, we were pulling, we had brought it up at the last meeting, I don't have all the paperwork I had with me.
So what's calculated up?
Well, we looked at what we were taking out of, what we were hitting retained earnings for the last couple of years, I think is what we discussed.
Well, retained earnings
Right.
wasn't used for operational, don't believe. It was the retained earnings, which was for one-time expenses. At least it shouldn't be used for, retained earnings shouldn't be used for operating.
Well, depends on how you looked at it. I mean, that's,
It's frowned upon. It's
Well,
a
that's-
revenue source, but it's frowned upon because it's not a true balanced budget.
well, if you read enterprise fund regulations and rules, they say it's perfectly acceptable to use retained earnings because retained earning is money that users pay,
Yes.
and it's in the bank. It's not like your tax revenue. So users are paying it, and it's perfectly acceptable to use that to operate your budget. But you need money in retained earnings to account for years like this where you have all kinds of crap go wrong, that you need to have money in the bank to take care of.
I see the town of Oxford, they had their town meeting, I was reading some of their warrant articles, and their finance committee, they weren't recommending the water sewer budget because, for that reason, that they said that the revenue wasn't supporting a true reflection of the rates weren't supporting the
Well, Uxbridge would be a tough one because Uxbridge just had to build that treatment plant that cost a ridiculous amount of money. And they were putting that burden all on the rate users and not on any of the taxpayers. And, you know, if you have to build a giant new treatment plant like that, without it, you're not going to have all your tax revenues. So, you know, I disagree with it. I always say you've got to look at it and see what the balance points are and everything else. You know, they had that argument in Dudley as well as to, because they just approved an $11.5 million treatment plant for Ppos. And it took a lot of discussions, but the selectmen and the FAA committee, or whatever they call it over there, they finally came around to understand that if you put it all on the rate users, the only option for to try to get the money in the budget is any new business that comes in, you're going to have to hit them with a, you know, $300,000 or $500,000 connection fee. So right there, you're going to drive any business out of town, and nobody will be able to do anything, and you'll get no tax revenue that you're expecting off of these pot farms or whatever else, because they can't come in because you price them out of it. So
That was done.
yeah. So, you know, even a lot of people at the town meeting were saying, yeah, no, this needs to come off ratepayers, not just, you know, off of taxpayers, not just ratepayers. Normally it's the other way. You know, everybody's in there complaining that the taxpayer shouldn't pay it, it should be on the ratepayers. But they were the opposite over there. They were, you know, everybody understood that, yeah, this shouldn't just be on them because they're going to have to put a moratorium. Nobody can connect to water and everything else.
Dudley used to be very cheap. It's still, the tax is still.
Dudley's still probably the cheapest around for taxes. Yeah, well,
Remember one point I looked at it, it was under $10 a thousand at one point.
yeah,
Wow.
On their taxes.
but it's still, what's a $300,000 house in Douglas for tax?
19 and change per thousand.
So what does that come out to?
So round it off to 20 per thousand, $6 grand.
6,000. So mine's 1,700, so, yeah. And because Dudley valuates low and has the rates low. So,
I think we're at 19 and change, I think, tax rate.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah, after the override. So what number was I looking for? Or what were you,
What were the 270 something, looking at some projects, what was that?
you want to know what the projects are? I don't know why my-
Projects.
I don't know why my computer's frozen up here.
I mean, I think it's nice at some point, just a breakdown of that, so I can
Oh.
kind of load it back into my computer so I can keep it for future reference.
I mean, I got the list that you would give me that we talked about on the phone in case I was called up during town meeting.
That was for the new budget though, right?
Oh, yeah.
For the 270.
Yeah, no, it's for 22.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So we talked about the filter rehab at the sewer plant.
Yep. And that they actually came back higher, but they quoted me to do both, so now it's kind of like,
And we had that, we had some on that last year too, on this current budget, there's so many per year.
well, that was last year's, the filter rehab. This year was the engineering to do the pilot, which we have to move on now. Luckily, we had the money set from last year to get the filters, and then this year for the piloting, because the EPA came out with our draft permit. I sent that all to you guys, but, so that's gonna go into effect this year. And we won't be able to meet the phosphorus and the aluminum limit with our current operation, which was what I anticipated, which is why I wanted to get those done ahead of time and get the piloting done to change to a different chemical, so we don't have to make major upgrades to the treatment plant. I think we can do it with just some chemistry change. But the limits came in way better than I anticipated them to be. I think I was expecting 80,000 on the 80,000 on the aluminum, and it came in at 146. So that's a way higher limit than I anticipated. They didn't change the phosphorus limit at all. The only thing I didn't anticipate, which I probably should have, because I pointed it out at the first PFAS meeting we had.
So, not to, just so I understand, I'm following this, so they came in at a higher limit, meaning that helped us?
Yes. So we only have to remove it down to 146 parts per million, as opposed to 80 parts per million. So we don't have to get it down as low as I thought we were going to have to, because all the other draft permits I saw, they said an 80,000 limit. So that was good. The only thing that didn't come out before we prepared the budget was that they're going to hit us with a Ppos testing on the wastewater side. So that wasn't even discussed a year ago, and now they just came out with it because there's so much going on with PFAS that they want to start sampling the wastewater to see, if they got high PFAS in all the water they've given to everyone, and it doesn't get removed through any of the processes, obviously you're sending it to the wastewater plant. And 90% of the treatment plants in Massachusetts don't have treatment to remove PFAS on your wastewater. It's a whole different operation to remove that. So my guess is in the next 8 years or so, you'll start seeing all kinds of issues with anywhere a wastewater treatment plant discharges, you get a plume of PFAS down the river. And they'll be looking at that as the source for contaminated wells anywhere along that channel that you discharge to. So.
Because you're doing the removal?
Because you don't have removal.
Don't have removal.
So right now, they're changing any permits to include PFAS sampling in your influent, your effluent, and your sludge. So PFAS, to break it down, you got to incinerate it at like 1,000 degrees C, not Fahrenheit, Celsius. So, a lot of your incinerations don't go to that high. So it needs to get to that level to break the bond and break it down. So they want you to test the influent, the effluent, and the sludge, so they can see if where you're sending your sludge is accumulating giant amounts of PFAS wherever they're disposing of their incineration ashes or whatever. They're seeing what's in your effluent to see if you're sending it down the river, and at some point they'll be doing evaluations on the rivers to see what effects any accumulations are there. Then you'll probably see restrictions on fish, you know, how they have the mercury warnings, high levels of mercury, you'll probably see high levels of PFOS warnings for fish, because PFOS is a bioaccumulative, so it gets into your body and it stays there. So long periods, it doesn't break down. It's the whole reason, I mean, PFOS was invented for that reason. It doesn't break down, it's water resistant, it's stain resistant, it's flame resistant. You know, that's why they use it on Teflon pans, because it holds up to the heat and the wear and tear and everything else you're giving to it. Water repellents on your clothing, any of your waterproof bug sprays, sunscreens, makeup, all that stuff. Anything that has any kind of oil resistance, water resistance, stain resistance. That's why they designed that chemical for those reasons.
It's probably the chemical that my dermatologist was talking about, the sunscreens, and I asked him which one,
Yeah.
which one's the best ones to use, and he had said,
They probably said not waterproof.
yeah, he said the ones that have the waterproof, he said actually 4% of it gets absorbed into the water.
Yeah, and the waterproof chemical that they're putting in there is a PFOS. So those are a long chain hydrocarbon that is bonded with a fluorine ion or atom, and they make a strong bond, and it's very hard to break. That's why it lasts forever, and that's why, because of its nature as elastic forever, your body doesn't break it down, it just accumulates in there. And I think they said that it'll stay in your body for probably 4 years or more. And during that period, you just keep accumulating more.
Stopped using whatever it was.
Yeah, if you got rid of it all, you know, over time, you'd probably excrete it at some point, but,
You have to start cooking in cast iron, Colin.
yeah, but it's also in your food packaging, your popcorn, your microwave popcorn bags, you know, everything doesn't stick to that, that's got PFOS in it. Some guy was concerned because the new Save the Turtle straws, biodegradable straws, they would make them out of plastic, or paper. Some guy's like, well, you know, the original ones that came out with these, they kind of got all soggy and fell apart before you even finish your drink. Now they hold up pretty good. So he took all the different straws and had them tested, and they're all high in PFOS. That's what they coat them with.
It's drinking
You're drinking straight out of it. So it's all over the place. It's in everything you do. I mean, firefighting foams, because of their flame resistance, that work great for putting out fires, but
That's why most places are going back to plastic straws now.
yeah, probably will.
You gotta buy your own straw, Bob. They sell stainless steel ones.
Or tell you to drink out of the cup. But,
You think about,
Gore-Tex and Gore-Tex.
oh yeah. Yeah, you should see the list of stuff whenever we had to sample for it, because we just sampled, which is the letter I gave you. I kind of wanted to get that out before we sampled, but we just sampled, and it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get the results, so. I don't know if it's worth sending a letter out now. I don't know if you guys want to review that, but it's just, it was tough getting it down to 2 pages, because there was just pages and pages and pages of information.
I mean, you think that as parents too, with having kids involved.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, never was sunblock everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But now when my kids, same thing, since they were little, it's sunscreen, so now you put that stuff from the time they're little all the way.
Yeah.
How much of that are going
And when you're little, that's when your body absorbs it all
Yeah.
quickly. You know, we kind of toughen up our skin.
So you think you're helping them, you're really helping them, you're saving them, protecting them from the sun and burning and stuff, what damage is being done
Yep.
long term, chemicals.
Yeah. You see a lot more cases of cancer and everything else nowadays than you did back then. But,
By using that stuff.
Well, I hope I was good guys.
yeah, otherwise our rates are going to be a whole different conversation.
Well, I think that if it comes back, I'm assuming that the feds or the state would be stepping up and helping out the communities that.
They are, but there's only a limited amount of money they're going to be able to dish out. Dudley did get a bunch of grants for the engineering and stuff. I mean, Dudley got lucky that they had a well collapse, so they had to drill for a new well. And any new wells, they were making you test for the PFOS. and it came up over. So they found out before all these other towns did, so all the grants that came out, they were able to jump on and get, 200,000, 78,000 for engineering, which normally the grants don't cover the engineering portion. Then they got a couple other grants for some of the installation, because it was done kind of in a phase where they did a blending pipe to get one source to blend with another source and try to bring it down below that level. But with the levels that they tested at all the wells, they knew long-term it's going to be an issue and they're not going to be able to maintain it. It's going to be a month-to-month testing to see if you're keeping it below or not. And I don't know if I explained what the limits are, but it's 20 parts per trillion, which is essentially one drop of water in 660,000 gallons. So that's the level that they're measuring down to. One drop in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So
what are the plumbers gonna do when like Teflon tape?
yeah, that's
No.
well, that's one of the big issues. Is,
Yeah.
And that was one of the big concerns that we've had. Many conversations with DEP and MWWA and AWWA, and just bunches of groups were having these conference calls and stuff all the time over, what about your Teflon tape on your sample taps, and
Right.
how much contamination is coming from that? The sampling instructions they give
You guys
you.
still on the agenda, or are you just, are you done? You still on the agenda?
Oh, we're still on.
Yeah, it's part of the rates.
What was it?
Teflon tape on the
Yeah, so
side, but-
Teflon tape, the sampling, so the instructions that we got for sampling, you can't wear any clothes that you use fabric softener on, you can't wear any clothes that have stain resistant, water resistant, no Gore-Tex boots, no rain gear, it's like, you almost can't sample with clothes on, just, you can't use you can't use lotions, you can't use deodorant, no makeup, obviously we got all guys, but it's just the whole list of things that you cannot do or use or anything the day that you're sampling. So, but that's how sensitive this test is.
So we're gonna send this out?
Yeah, if you guys review it, and I know you like to do your grammar checks and all that, reword, but,
The only thing I saw was it says, should we exceed the state MCL of 20, approximately one drop in 660,000 gallons of water.
like I said, you like to do your grammar check.
Yeah, I'd be on board with putting that out if you guys are on board.
It's just to
with it.
kind of give people a heads up that this
Yeah.
is coming, and it's not something that, the problem is when you sample, per the regulation, when you sample, it takes like 2 to 3 weeks to get your results. And then the way the regulation's written, if you exceed the MCL on one sample, you have to do a public education. So it's a letter they send out. DEP has all their language in there that you're required to put. And when you read it, you think everybody in the town's going to die tomorrow. It's strong language, it's scary language, it's, you're like, oh my God, we're all going to die. But I can tell you that blows up social media. That's why I kind of wanted to get in front of it and at least get people aware that this is coming. And then to look at the regulation went into place in October of last year. That's when they promulgated it. But small systems like us aren't required to sample until October of this year. So a town like Dudley wasn't supposed to sample at this point, but because they had a well failure and they identified it, all of a sudden sent out a notice and they're like, oh my God, this happened in October, we've been drinking this water for this long. Well, no, you've really been drinking the water for 20 years like this, but we just tested for it. But because it takes it was up to like over a month before you got results, but now they've approved more labs to run the test and everything, it's going a little quicker. But it looks like, oh my God, you guys knew about this 3 months ago, but it takes that long to figure out if you're in violation, not in violation, because the regulation, the 20 parts per trillion, is based on a 3-month average. So it's a quarterly average. So if you take 3 samples in 1 month, you average those 3 for that month. If you take 2 the next month, you average those for that month. And the third month, if you take 1 or however, you average those. And then you average those 3 averages together to determine if you're in compliance or not. So you could be at 25 the first month, and then 15 and 15, and you're fine. But you exceeded that first month, but you still meet the regulation. So it's a confusing regulation, and there's a lot involved in it. It's probably one of the more confusing ones. And I could explain it to you more if you guys want to hear about it after, but it's just, it's very intense as to figuring out every angle of it. You trigger the MCL if your first sample, say your first sample was 63. Automatically, you're in violation because your average, if you came in 0 and 0 on the next 2, you exceed the 20. But your quarterly average isn't until you finish a quarter. But they say with this regulation that as soon as you violate the MCL, so if you had 30 and 30, or 31 and 30, then you would exceed, even if your last one was 0. So at that point, you've exceeded. But like Dudley was at like 21 or 21 and a half or something like that with their quarterly average. So they were dancing along the line and ended up going over, so they had to report it. But it was a 3-month average, so it took 3 months to find out whether or not you were in violation. Had they had 1 sample come in enough lower, they could have been perfectly fine and within the regulation. But people go out of their mind, oh my God, you exceeded, we're in violation, we're all going to die. But like I said in the thing here, I mean, they base that 20 parts per trillion on drinking 2 liters of water every day for 70 years. So unless you're drinking 2 liters of water every day and you're over 70, then, you know, it shouldn't be that level of concern at that point. But then DEP comes into it with pregnant women, immunocompromised people, people with respiratory issues. There's another category of people that they're more concerned about, not the long term, but acute term, that it could have other adverse health effects. So some towns.
I think that we can educate the public on.
That's what I mean. Try to get it out there, get them some information, let them start looking. Like I said, I put that little QR code that'll bring you right to DEP's fact sheet so you can read through it, because I had a bunch of that in there, but I'm like, geez, it's going to be a 10-page thing. I'd rather just give them a little bit of information and let them have the links to go get some more.
Make it interesting and curious to get them to.
Right. Go look at it, see what we're talking about, and worst case scenario, we waste some postage and we mailed out some information to get some people educated on it, and hopefully we come back under the limit and we're fine. But you know, worst case scenario is not pretty. I've seen it happen in other towns where, you know, they're up in the hundreds, and DEP required to start providing bottled water, shut sources down, come up with alternate sources of water, connect to another town.
What was their source of contaminant primarily? Was it like, was what the base was?
The big ones are around Air Force bases, airports, Air Force bases, and one of the other big ones was the firefighting academy. You know, they're practicing with that foam on those buildings that they light on fire, and that one spot out there and just totally contaminated. Westfield was huge numbers. They were up in the hundreds.
So if they have a site like that, can they excavate and remove that?
You could, but this is a tricky chemical because it's a, I don't want to use the wrong term, but anyway, part of this chemical likes to be in water, part of it doesn't like to be in water. So part of it's trying to get out of the water, it's sitting at the top, and part of it's hanging in the water. So
It's like a bother.
yeah, so, you know, if you think about it, if it's in a cup of water,
Yeah.
it's sitting at the surface, so you take a drink, and you're getting concentrated right there. You use a straw, you're not. But it's just a very tricky chemical. And they're only measuring for 6, but I think EPA recognizes like 4,700 different chemicals that are the PFOS chemicals, but they chose the 6 that were the long chain that are harder to break down, some long half-life. A lot of those other ones are shorter half-lives, they break down a little easier. So they picked the 6 that they were most concerned with. And it's the combined total, all 6 of those has to be under the 20.
So how do you think this is going to affect like Bowling Spring or plastic bottles?
Now, I said the same thing, everybody's like, oh, you gotta provide bottled water. Well, how do you know the bottled water doesn't contain it? So DEP on their site, if you read through that, there's other links. Once you connect to that link, it gives you other links to look at their list of bottled water suppliers that say they tested their water and they don't have PFAS. My concern is...
This is the way I know, this is my...
Right, and that's, right, so, and that's why I want to explain it to you. They don't tell you how they sample, where they sample, when they sample. If they're sampling their source, okay, fine, but is it in your plastic bottle after you fill it up with your source and put it in a tractor-trailer truck that sits in Arizona for 2 weeks and 110 degrees, and then they go put it in a warehouse for another 3 months, and it's just absorbing it all out of the plastic? I think if you took a bottle that's been sitting in a warehouse or a tractor-trailer truck for who knows how long, and then you test that water out of the bottle, I think you might have a different result than what the bottling company
Right.
tested.
Because the heat will break it down.
Exactly, and the time, if you're sitting there in a bottle, in heat, cold, you're gonna continue to leach that stuff out of a bottle. And I'm sure that the little piece that's inside the cap of a bottle I'm sure that has it, and when you put it on, they're not testing it after that stuff. I would almost guarantee they tested it at the source. And they said, oh, well, this is the water we're putting in the bottle, it's fine. We're not telling you about what you're getting from the bottle. So, I have concerns, but that's why I want to point them to that and not offer the bottled water myself as a way to alleviate the problem. And the part that drives me nuts with that is they tell you you're required to provide bottled water, whether you let people buy bottled water and you reimburse them or take it off of their bill. But in my mind, it doesn't make sense, because who's paying for the water? Ultimately, the users. So if we spend $200,000 on bottled water, we're going to raise your rates to pay for that bottled water. It's not like we get free money to pay for that. So we're going to raise your rates, and you're going to pay for whatever you wasted because you figure you got free bottled water. You're going to take all you can get. If you need bottled water, buy your bottled water and save us from raising rates. Because if I raise rates for $200,000 to cover bottled water, we're not going to drop the rates next year because we're not providing bottled water again.
Right.
That's going to go towards some of these other projects I need to get done.
So do we have to go to so we're gonna put that out, and then just for the tail end of the rate discussion, so we're gonna go to a hearing next, or what do we do next?
Yeah, so we would have to do a public hearing. So it would have to get published in the newspaper.
And then after the hearing is when we vote on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the way we did it last time.
Now, just to let you know, Doug emailed me last Friday, asking if there was any word on moving forward with the rates. I don't know if you had called him and asked him, or I don't know what sparked that, but he called last Friday, and I went back and I emailed him in December 8th, I think, with the approved budget, and that you guys wanted him to use those numbers to redo the calculations for it, and didn't hear a word from him since, until last Friday.
Maybe you watched the meetings.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
I haven't talked to him.
I clearly pointed out that I think his rate study's useless.
Yeah, we used it for some base reference points at the last meeting. At least I did, anyway.
Yeah, I looked at it, but and used some of his information and numbers that he used, but overall, I know you guys think he's cheaper because his is 8,000, but I showed you what you get for 25,000, and yeah, 25,000 is a lot more than 8, but that 25,000 one was a 10-year projection. And if you're using Doug he was saying you need to do it at least every 3 years. 3 times 8 is 24,000. And if you look at the comparison of what you get with what they did and what you get with what he did, it's night and day.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
said it,
see that this was done,
what Doug did basically was just a spreadsheet.
so. No, the one.
No, you didn't
Oh.
see, yeah, I
Yeah.
pulled Dudley's and I pulled,
Uxbridge, was it?
I
Uxbridge,
pulled
think.
two different ones.
Two different ones anyway, and it was just their slide presentation. It wasn't even an in-depth study, it was just the slide presentation that they had for the hearing. And I think Ty and Bond did one of them.
Yeah, Time Bond did one,
And it was just nice, and it all tied, you know,
but they looked at your
They went
10-year
out.
projection, kind of like what
Yeah.
you're saying you want is, you got to replace mains, you got to replace this, you got a treatment plant, you got, a storage tank that needs to be rehabbed. You look at your master plan, 20-year master plan, and Doug doesn't look at any of that. I mean, you look at your master plan and say, here's what you're projecting that you need to do, either a water main extension or expand your sewer, or replace this sewer line or water line.
or even alternatives to, like we got one base rate structure from him. But maybe an alternative, well, this is what a tiered rate would look like.
Right, and
Just to give us there's just none of that,
And they even, like in Dudley, they even put in, here's some big projects that you need to do, and we think you might want to have a debt exclusion, that's what they call it over there, instead of, town contribution. Taxpayers paying for it. So he showed the two different scenarios with a debt exclusion, without a debt exclusion, what it's going to have an effect for your rate users, what it's going to have for your taxpayers. It showed what your poverty level is, at this dollar amount, and by hitting this much of a rate increase, you're going to be in this level of your poverty index, and, they give you this is a high to moderate or a medium, it's a heat chart, they call it. When you get into the red, you're overburdening your ratepayers. But they go through and they pull all that census data, they look at all the different aspects and what the rules and regulations and standard practices is for rates, and they determine whether or not, this is going to exceed that, and you got to come up with another way to pay for this. I mean, Doug doesn't put any of that effort in. And, I mean, I just think if you looked at, I'll get you another copy.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
I don't know what happened.
I mean, it sounds more what I thought my thought process on.
Right, and, he looks at it and says, oh, well, yeah, I look at your last 2 years or 3 years, and, oh, yeah, you need to raise your rates by this. Well, you're not looking forward at all. I mean, I think his claim was, oh, yeah, you want to do this, but then you want to put 50,000 into retained earnings.
Well, and then we've got a map, so versus right now, we haven't done anything for 5 years
On rates.
on rates. So then you've got a map to follow, which is more along what I like.
Right,
And
and
it's constantly went out of the wood, it could still fall through to
to the next
the
board
next,
members, right.
whatever the amendment, whatever it may be.
But my issue with that a little bit is like Dudley, I mean, the commissioners over there, they're like, oh, well, we paid for this, we just got to follow it. I'm like, well, no, you don't just follow it, you got to look at it and say, did we get the revenue we thought we were going to get from the first raise? And if we didn't, then we might need to go up more.
Right, adjust.
Or if we,
Working document.
right, and that's what I said, it's a live document, it's not, you don't just hold it true for the next 5 years saying this many rate increases. I said, you got to look at it every year, look at your budget, look at your expenses, see what your revenues were. I mean, you're also doing meter changes, and you're catching people stealing water, you're correcting those issues. You might have brought in way more revenue than you thought you were gonna. You got to look at it every year. But they didn't look at any of the budget stuff or anything. I'm like,
So for this one, what do you want to do? Schedule something out? I mean, we're going to post something, and so we're looking at what, mid-June, tail end of June?
I mean, we got to put it out in the newspaper for 2 weeks, I think. 2 weeks in the paper.
2 or 3? 2?
I think it was 2.
2 weeks, I think, yeah.
For public hearing.
And then for the, and not to get too far into the weeds, but do we have anything we need to do with Munis?
Munis would be, we talked to Munis, and it seemed like it's a simple,
Simple? Okay,
I say simple, but
yeah.
changing a letter from X to Y is a major production.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
But they seem to think it was a very simple thing. All you do is add a couple lines and you're done.
And our next meeting we can have down there, right? We can go back home?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I would assume so.
I think they, 29, I think.
Well, June 1st was the town hall's opening.
Yeah.
I don't think they included fire department or senior center, but they were going to talk to them, so that's not out of the question. I think it would be up to this board whether you guys want to open to the public at the water and sewer department. So I don't know if you guys want to take a quick consensus and vote on that, or
I don't see why not.
just because we don't fall under,
We still got the
yeah, we got the shield in front
Shield.
there.
Yeah.
Behind the counter. But if maybe for the hearing, we should have the hearing here,
oh, the hearing, I would, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
I'm just saying, I mean,
In the event they,
right, but I mean, our meetings, we
We always had the hearings
always
here.
had.
Yeah.
we very rarely have anyone come to our meetings,
Oh,
Yeah.
so,
40-some odd years, and I think we had 2 people.
Yeah.
but, I mean, in general, opening to the public, I mean, we weren't letting anyone in the offices, just because if you wipe out, we got a small staff to begin with, you wipe them out, we're kind of screwed, so.
Well, hopefully,
Well, it's up to you, Bob, if you think it's, we're better off staying up here.
I don't mean for the meetings.
Oh, all right.
I mean, opening the
Oh,
office
public.
to the
Oh.
public,
Yeah.
because that's happening up here. The town hall is going to be back open to the public
Yeah.
as of June 1st.
I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not sure, is everybody, as far as staff, are we vaccinated, being vaccinated?
I don't think any of my guys are concerned about it. I mean, we're pretty isolated, we don't deal with too many people anyway.
So, and it'd be office.
So I mean, that's, like I said, up to the consensus of the board. If you guys want to open it back up to the public, we don't have a lot of people that come down there anyway.
I think we try to be responsible with the state guidelines.
That's my, I mean, I was
My take.
I was half opposed to all this mask stuff in the first place. I play in wastewater all day. I built my immune system up. But,
That's probably why you and I never got sick.
yeah, so that'd be up to you guys.
I don't see why we can't.
I mean, I think I would agree with, continuing to do payment plans. I would still do that online. I don't think she needs to come down, have everybody come down and meet with her.
No.
I mean, there's no sense in bringing people in when we don't need to.
Yeah, we don't need to.
But I'm not opposed to someone coming in to, so.
Because I think if we don't, I think it gets confusing.
I mean, how many people come into the office down there?
Right.
Yeah. Well, they
Oh,
left the
anybody.
fire department closed.
I mean, the time that we had most people coming in is payment plans, because we're having them come down and sign, but with today's technology, there's no reason she can't email it and get them to.
Yeah, so we just.
An agreement in an email is as good as signed to me as a signed piece of paper.
So we'll just, establish that, the payment plans continue that email process.
Yeah. Continue the payment plans the way you have through the COVID, and, otherwise we're open for business. That's fine by me. That's,
Yep.
And then we'll work on the hearing.
Yeah, and then I see Lee put some stuff together, I
Yeah.
haven't gone through it, so I don't have to read it through it first.
Yeah, I haven't.
Anybody?
For quarterly billing, you mean?
Just to touch on that, I did briefly talk to Bob about that today. And just my thought was, if we were with the rates increase and things, and there had been a lot of people past talk about quarterly billing, but there were a few hurdles that we had to get over. That we need to talk about, so.
I mean, I think there's pros and cons. I just,
All right. And we had to reorganize. Want to do that now, or do you want to do that at the next meeting? It's not on the agenda, but. Want to wait till the next meeting?
that's new business.
Okay.
When was the election?
This month. So I think we're still good till next month. You want to wait till next month and it's on the
That's up to you guys.
agenda?
I just
don't-
mean, we got old new business on the agenda, so
Yeah.
if you wanted to do it under that, I mean, it'll
Make a motion,
take you 5 seconds.
nominate Bob Josie.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to nominate Colin Hare as vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to nominate Keith as secretary.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No change.
The ayes have it.
Be the first time that the town clerk's happy with us. We did it on time.
Now I'm sure you'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting at 9:25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.